Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And this is being brought to you by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and Zoom. And we're pre-taping the Wednesday before our Monday air. And there are a couple of key things that we think we need to talk about, one of which is in the news as we speak and will still be percolating. And because of the stringent voter restriction laws that are being passed around the country, and especially in Texas, the Texas state, Democratic state legislators fled the state of Texas. A good bunch of them ended up in Washington, D.C., trying to call attention to these crazy laws. So, guys, Texas is not the only state, right? And so there are two ways to approach this. We could dig in and give an example, and maybe that's what we should do. We talk about the parolee first to show how stringent these people are trying to be. And Bob, you want to give us a background on that parole case?
Well, basically, it was a person who had been he had completed his term, correct, Eric?
He was just 2 months shy of being totally off parole,
right?
Last year during one of the presidential primaries, and he was trying to vote in Texas.
In Texas, and like you said, he was 2 months short, technically, of the end of his parole. And the paperwork that they give you when you're ending your parole, it explains a lot of things. It tells you what you can and what you can't do and who you have to report to. One thing it doesn't say is when you're allowed to vote, when you can vote, when that limitation is off of you. And he didn't know that. He had no idea that he was 2 months short of that legal limitation. And he waited, what was it, Eric? 6 or 7 hours to vote, to make sure he voted in that presidential primary, because it was that important to him. He was working 2 jobs. And after the vote, someone interviewed him on the way out, and he said, and they asked, what are you going to do now? He said, I got to go to work. So this is a guy who really wanted to be part of the American system, cast his vote, and be part of the process. For his good deed, he is now being prosecuted for illegal voting. And Eric, what is it? $100,000 bail?
$100,000 bail. And the person who brought it to the attention was a Republican female poll supervisor, watcher, whatever. And she said, I was doing my civic duty by checking into this person, and it looks like he voted illegally. I believe the parole violation, his full restitution would have been up in June of that year. And I believe that primary took place in March. And so he voted in March, not knowing that he was not eligible to vote. And the state attorney general decided to lower the boom on him. And interestingly enough, Bob, we were talking about this. The county where he made the erroneous vote is not where the attorney general brought the charges. What did you discover when you dug into that?
Well, as we were talking about this obviously before we went on air, and you're right. He wasn't charged in the county where this quote offense took place. That county is a high minority county, has a significant number of people of color. The AG decided to bring the charges in a contiguous county. Since it's a state offense, you can bring it in any county. And that particular county is white. And so,
right, about 82% or something like that.
Yeah. So the chances for a successful prosecution and conviction, I should say, in that county is a lot higher than it would be in his home county. And this was done on purpose. This is sort of the Simi Valley type of,
Yep.
People who know that reference know what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
It's just and as we were saying before we went on air, Eric, another act of intimidation, another way to let people know if you vote and you and you did something in your history, we're coming after you. So don't vote. That's
you have to know all the minutiae. You have to know the rules and regs. You have to know exactly what's going on. And because that from the previous legal statute in Texas, this new statute or these new statutes that they're bringing as a result of the big lie are even more stringent. And we use this particular parolee as an example of what they're trying to do, which is to intimidate and scare Black, brown, poor, and young voters from voting, period, just because they're afraid that those voters are not going to vote Republican. And so a slate of laws are being passed across the country. Raymond, you did some quick digging in, and according to the Brennan Center, what did you find about how many of these states and how many of these laws are being rolled out by the Republicans?
Okay, this is interesting. The Brennan Center reported that as of February, there were 253 bills proposed across 43 states. That was in February. By May, it was 389 bills across 48 states. So you can see, I don't know what the current total is.
The number, the number of laws keep increasing, and I believe there are at least 16 states have passed these laws, and the
14,
proposed
16,
laws,
yeah, absolutely.
And the proposed laws are continuing to roll out. I don't know, maybe we could try that screen share, Bob, just to give our audience a sense of how many of the bills that are being out there by how many states and what it is they're, I know in certain instances, they're trying their best to make it hard for mail-in ballots to.
Yeah, that's their main concentration, early voting and mail-in ballots.
It is just horrendous. I don't know how big you can make that screen, but just on that first line alone, looks like Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Iowa,
oh yeah,
Oklahoma. On the second
Kentucky.
line, you got Arizona. Third line, no, Arkansas. Fourth line, third line, fourth line, Arizona, Georgia, Florida. It's just unbelievable. On the left-hand column, you got shorten the window to apply for a mail ballot, shorten deadline to deliver mail ballot, make it harder to remain on the absentee voting list, eliminate or limit sending mail ballot applications to voters who do not specifically request them, eliminate or limit sending mail ballots to voters who do not specifically request them.
Go down to the last one, the most petty one that everybody is. No, keep going. I'll tell you what it is. Limiting refreshments to people waiting online.
Oh boy. You can't bring them any water while they're standing.
You can't bring them any water, you can't bring them any food. They can stand there for 8 hours and you're not allowed to give them anything.
Yeah, and the Republicans are saying, no, these aren't anti-voting laws. These are things to make voting more safe and make voting more secure. Yeah, but you can't bring folks standing in line to vote some water or some refreshments. So yeah, that's all about making.
That's the most petty thing they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of I'm glad we're talking about this this week, because yesterday, as we tape on the Wednesday, was the baseball All-Star game, which was held in Denver instead of Atlanta, because MLB pulled it out of Atlanta on account of the voting laws changes that it made coming out of the 2020 election. So it's timely that we talk about these things. And one of the top reasons for pulling the game out of Atlanta was for the Georgia law that says you can't bring snacks and water to voters in line, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, because Georgia was right ahead of Texas with their restrictive, really stringent voting laws that they claim was to secure the ballot, even though the Georgia Secretary of State had come out more than once and said this was the most safe, secure and best run election that they've ever had.
Republican,
and
correct?
Signed on to these new voter restriction laws. So
yes.
They're trying to talk out of both sides of their mouths. But the interesting thing about this is the Democrats are almost awake now. We're talking the day after Joe Biden gave his speech. A lot of people were disappointed because they said that the President Biden, cried foul about what these laws were all about, but did not come out with a very strong statement about how he was going to make sure that the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act managed to make its way successfully through the halls of Congress. There was no such thing as, look, we're gonna have to pull out the stops to make this thing happen. It's like, oh yeah, we know it's under assault and this is happening and the Republicans are not playing right and fair and it is horrible for our democracy, but there was no, and you know what? We're gonna make sure this doesn't work. I didn't hear that from that speech. Talk to me, guys.
I only heard snippets of it, but that's exactly the feel I got from it, and there were lengthy snippets at that. I didn't get the passion. If there was a moment for an impassioned speech with, really calling for action and calling out people like Senator, is it Manchin and
Cinema.
not asking them, telling them to wake the hell up, because we need the votes to get these things passed. And if we don't, the state legislatures and the whatnot will will destroy. And that's not hyperbole, destroy the voting system.
Ray, what were you seeing on the reaction to Biden's speech?
I gotta tell you the truth, guys. I'm not paying that much attention these days. I haven't seen any reaction to the Biden speech.
Okay. What I saw didn't leave. I mean, people were upset. Okay. They were not happy. I mean, yeah, it was a call out on what the Republicans were doing, but there was no sense of urgency about, we have to make sure that they do not succeed. And because it's on how many states, Raymond? 48? 48 states
48
are passing
states.
These kinds of restrictive laws.
They're trying to.
And there's no way in the world that the people on the ground can push back. And the only recourse is for a federal pushback to make sure.
But they're making it. For instance, in Florida, there is, what's this town supervisor, whoever is in charge of the drop boxes in Florida.
Okay.
He has a mandate to only have them open 12 hours a day. If they're open 12 hours and 1 minute, he gets fined $25,000. So this is how they're controlling the people inside their party. They're fining them for violating any of these laws that they're passing.
All right, and we know that part of the Texas bill was to make sure that the most populous county in Texas, Harris County, had a limited amount of drop boxes. I believe I heard they were only going to allow them one drop box, but that might be hyperbole.
No, that's Eric. That's not hyperbole.
That's not hyperbole.
One is what they had for Harris County.
One drop box.
Entire
county, the most populous county in Texas. One drop box.
And you couldn't walk in. It was a drive-in type facility. So there was nothing made for people to walk in and drop it.
So if anybody that tells you this is not voter suppression with examples like that are whistling into the wind, is that one of the crazy phrases? I don't know what the goddamn.
No, that's good. But that's a clean one, cleaner than I would have used.
Yeah, I know. Whistling or peeing.
Yes.
Whichever way you want to go.
Yes. No, I mean it's ridiculous, Eric, when you look at it, and again this week during yesterday's we're talking Wednesday again as we tape. yesterday's All-Star game, the Republicans ran ads during the game to directed towards Blacks, directed right at us, alleging that, hey, most Blacks support voter ID laws. And, you know, which is, and if you look at the credit line for that statistic they put up, it was the Washington Examiner, which is as conservative and as unreliable as you get.
Examiner. Okay, so let's just say the Washington Examiner, little square thing in the Washington, D.C. area, they polled how many people to come to that conclusion?
There you go, Eric. There you go. Yeah. Whatever research they did is statistically insignificant.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so we're supposed to buy that. Yeah, okay. Look.
And the worst thing about that video is that the last line, and he's a person of color, the last line is, we got played. You know, as you know, trying to use the what is it, Ebonics, the vernacular to get us.
We got played, right? Yeah, and a play at the All-Star baseball game.
Yes,
play,
yes,
play.
Yeah,
we got played, right?
I'm sorry. The people, you know, they're assuming we're stupid. Sorry, didn't mean to go on like that.
No, we need to go on like that. Raymond, what was that other thing from the Brennan Center that I think you wanted to make mention of? I'm not just a number of laws. And
I'm looking at their report right now. Well, there's so many things you could point out.
And just to be clear, the Brennan Center is an offshoot of the NYU School of Law School.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's correct.
Just for people who don't know. I mean, it's not.
We have to stop.
NYU is my alma mater, and I did not. Never mind.
Yeah.
Not plugging them.
Of course, you understand that now, because the Brennan Center is trying to keep tabs of this stuff, they're now being painted with the brush of being a left-leaning progressive mouthpiece, which we know is not the case. However,
I can read you a quote on that. I had to look it up before we came on air.
Oh.
The One America network, the one
this is covers basically another big lie. Other big lies.
They cover Trump events. They back Trump. You know, he's their golden leader. But when they refer to the Brennan Center, they call it where did I write it down now? A left wing. Gosh, what did I put it down? A left wing outfit, and that was the complete description. Okay. A left leaning outfit, and I thought I had the quote right down there.
Left-wing outfit, according to them, you know.
Yeah. Look, we're dealing in a media landscape where places like the Washington Examiner, Fox fake news, because I never say Fox News. I always say Fox fake news. And we've been doing this for years on Media Watch, Bob, as you well know, because when those other people were letting Donald Trump lie through the teeth and let Fox fake news help him lie through, we would tell them, this guy's lying. These outfits are propaganda outfits. We didn't pull any punches about, well, alleged. No, it ain't alleged. They've been fake news propaganda from day one, even under the guy who got brought up on charges and they had to pay out millions of dollars, Roger Ailes, for his sexual harassment of people. He coined the fake news mantra for Fox News, and they followed it to the T. And when he left, they even got worse. So in any event, not to get into a rant, let's double back to Texas and the crazy laws that Texas have been passing, because as part of that session, the governor and his people, they not only targeted voting rights, they put a bullseye on women in Texas. And when I say they put a bullseye on women in Texas, they passed a law that said anybody in the United States of America could become a deputized person who could bring charges against doctors, clinics, or any female who tried to have an abortion in the state of Texas, period. And if they were successfully brought to prosecution, any individual who did that would get a $10,000 reward. Now, when I saw that, my mind just exploded, because I could not believe that almost 200 years, it was 1850, they passed the Fugitive Slave Act, and they deputized everybody in the country. They mandated that everyone in the country would be allowed to turn in and capture any escaped African-American running away from slavery. And it was mandated that they were supposed to do that by law, federal law. And so what Texas is now trying to do is revisit the fugitive slave law, except it's no longer African-Americans seeking freedom, it's women in need of who might want to seek abortions, and they're now the target. And any doctor or clinic that tries to help them, woe unto them. It is horrendous. That New York Times article that you just put up, Bob, go back to that headline.
Sure. Let me scroll back up.
Citizens, not the state, will enforce new abortion law in Texas.
Nazi Germany.
Well, actually, you know what? This harkens back to the fact that this is almost revisiting all those sterilization laws that they passed in this country after 1900. They had this big eugenics movement, and across this country, they were passing laws sterilizing people. And the people they sterilized were the poor, the Black, the brown, anybody who did not have the wherewithal to push back. Some people got sterilized without even knowing they were being sterilized. They definitely didn't give their consent. And now a number of states are finally trying to own up to that. California just passed a reparations bill where they're going to pay people $25,000 if they can even find any of the people who suffered from the sterilization laws that they did. This new Texas law is as bad as that, okay? In my estimation, in my opinion, it is just horrendous.
No, it's calling for, I mean, and it doesn't matter where you are, correct, Eric?
You don't have to be in Texas. If you can figure out a way to know that somebody in Texas tried to do that and you bring it to their attention, they'll give you the reward. Yeah. You're a deputized person, okay? And scroll down and just read the lead, Bob.
Sure. Let me do this gently because I got a little jitter before.
Mm-hmm.
And this is by Sabrina Tavanese, published on the July 9th. People across the country may soon be able to sue abortion clinics, doctors, and anyone helping a woman get an abortion in Texas under a new state law that contains a legal innovation with broad implications for the American court system.
The entire American court system. And guess what? It isn't Texans, it's people across the country. This is some horrendous craziness.
I mean, let me just read the next paragraph. The provision passed the state legislature this spring as part of a bill that bans abortion after a doctor detects a fetal heartbeat, usually about 6 weeks of pregnancy. Many states have passed such bans, but the law in Texas is different. And I don't want to read the whole thing, but the fact that they're having people enforce the law and not the government puts a legal twist on it that makes it harder to defend against. The story says that even legal experts don't know what's going to become of this because no one's challenged it yet, and they don't know where things are going to go. So it opens up a big can of worms.
Yeah, it's a tricky way of trying to figure out a way to do this without being able to be sued in a court of law.
Astounding. I wish we had our Mr. Bonilla on this call.
Yes, we were trying to get, I was actually trying to find a female lawyer to come on board to help us deal with this issue. But it's not going to go away, so maybe we can revisit it when we do have a female legal expert to talk about this, because I know if women in the country, I mean, not just in Texas, if women in the country are not up in arms about this, then we got a serious problem in this country.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, this thing keeps popping up. Yes, it's amazing that Texas would basically deputize your neighbor to go after you, which is an awful thing. But in any case,
here's a key line, which you alluded to. It's completely inverting the legal system, says Stephen Vladek, a constitutional law professor at the University of Texas at Austin. It says the state is not going to be the one to enforce this law. Your neighbors are.
Yeah, scary.
The state is not enforcing the law. The neighbors are.
Yes, and with that, we have about 2 minutes.
Oh, gee. Oh, damn. We only got 2 minutes left. All right. Here's the thing that we're going to mention, and we're mentioning it, but we have to do it in a real show, and that's because there was a report by a UN commission. If I can pull it up and read the headline, the International Commission of Inquiry on Systemic Racist Police Violence Against People of African Descent in the United States. I'll read the opening paragraph. In June 2020, the UN Human Rights Council, HRC, strongly condemned, quote, the continuing racially discriminatory and violent practices perpetrated by law enforcement agencies against Africans and people of African descent, end quote, noting in particular the death of George Floyd on 25 May 2020 in Minnesota and the deaths of other people of African descent. The HRC also condemned structural racism in the criminal justice system and by resolution A/HRC/RES/43/1 mandated the High Commissioner to prepare a report on systemic racism and violations of international human rights law against Africans and people of African descent by law enforcement agencies globally.
Yeah,
Now,
and with that,
that's an amazing report.
Yes, and we'll have to dig into that soon,
Yeah.
because we're just about out.
We got to dig into it. But okay, folks, this has been Media Watch. We're going to revisit that. I'm Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on Twitter and YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
And I'm Raymond Peterson. Thank you and good night.
We'll catch you the next time, folks. Stay safe.